Right, doing a bit of work on the body shell. I've now glued in the clear parts. Well, I test fitted it and it dropped in perfect. So I just got my glue and glaze and applied some of the glue and glaze directly onto the inner shell there, up that little armature there, round the side there, down the little windscreen armature there and there. Same on the other side. I put a bit of glue there and a bit of glue on the edge there where it meets, where the bottom part of the windows meet the bonnet. And then got my clothes pegs, put one here, one here, one here and one here through the fender wells. The rear screen, I couldn't really clamp it or peg it or anything, so I just put some glue around the edges. And on the bottom part of the rear spoiler mounts, you can see that little curvature there. There's a little curvature in the windscreen as well, and there's a tiny little lip at the bottom there which holds that into place. So I just, like I said, ran the glue around and then just pushed that in and just left it with gravity. This has been drying for about 4 hours now and it's dried absolutely solid. Turning the shell over, I've also took the tape off, the masking tape, where I'd painted around the black. There's a little bit of paint bleed here and there. I think it's where the Future hasn't sealed it properly, or there might have been some slight creases. But it's not too bad. There's probably a little bit of tidying up, a little bit of touching up with the back there. But generally, it's not that bad. It's not as neat as the Mitsubishi was, to be honest. A bit round the back there. Right, the only problem is, when I was painting this, I've only just noticed this. I don't know if the flash is going to pick it up. But there's a bit of discoloration, it's a bit of blue. I don't know how it's happened, unless it's the sweat off my finger and thumb, because what I did, when I was painting around these, you know, around the tape and that with my brush, I've gripped it like that between my thumb and my forefinger. And I think that's what's happened with that discoloration. I mean, you can make out the discoloration that is the same size as my thumbprint. So it must have been the sweat off my fingers. Now I've noticed that, I'm going to have to use my cotton gloves to handle this when I'm topping all the edges up. So when you do this, just wear some cotton gloves. Because to top that up, one, it might be decals, I might cover it up, or I'll have to decant some of the Tamiya white spray and just paint it on by hand and just give it a once over to cover that discoloration up. But generally, the work I've done so far on the shell hasn't not turned out too bad at all. Right, another quick update. Now the clear parts have now all dried and settled, I've decided to put the rear lamps in, which is A7 and A8 respectively. Now I've already pre-painted them. You got black for the outer parts, and then for the inner parts, for the reflectors, you got silver. I'll show you those in a moment. What I've done is I've put the car, the shell, leaning up against the interior roll cage area. And what I've done is I've just put them into place. There's a little tiny lip there. And what you do is you just get them in as best you can, because they do move around, they're very fiddly. And I just got them into place and then just got the glue and just ran it around the edges. Because if you try and put the glue in first and then try and put these in, you'll be wishy-washing them all over the place, and the glue's going to be an awful mess. So like I said, just get it in the corner, up against that little lip, and just whack your glue around the edges. I'm taking this out, and that's what you get. It's dried really nice as well, not too bad. They haven't dried on the piss, which I was hoping they wouldn't. So that's them finished. So I've just got to install the lower bumper part, the mesh, and the engine block. Right, I've now done the last bit of construction on the inside of the body shell as it says in step 11 and step 12. So step 11 is the mesh. So I've got the engine mesh and I've got the two front pieces of mesh. I've also got the A14 piece which I've now glued into place, and I've now glued in the B22 piece. So there's my one piece of mesh is underneath the B22. The other two pieces of mesh are in there, as you can see. I'll just put some super glue on and then using a cocktail stick to jab it round and using the edge of this square file to push it down. I've done those, and then I just ran a bit of glue on the edges, on the underneath of that bumper piece, and I put a few bits and bobs there on that straight front piece, and that is now glued into place. So getting me white gloves on, turning this over, and there's the mesh, and there's the top mesh, and you got the engine underneath, and there's the front bumper piece there. I've got to take care of them, that 36185 bits poking through there, but that's nothing too major. So if I just put this on its side there and then put my flash on, and you can just about make out the B22 detailing inside there and the better view of the mesh. So this is now ready to be put onto the main roll cage interior chassis. Right, I've now put the chassis interior roll cage into the inside of the body shell now. Now on step 13 it tells you to get those two little pins at the front there and lower it in, nose first, put these pins in, which are that one there and that one there. There's a couple of pinholes there. I had to widen those slightly. So like I said, you just bring it down nose first. And on the back, you've got like a little raised lip, and then you've got these little C-shaped brackets at the back. There's one there and there's one on the other side. There's one C-shaped bracket, and the other one's just underneath there. Now the good thing about this, because it's all the body shell's all in one piece, you haven't put a rear bumper on, a front bumper on like the Mitsubishi, so you have to stretch these walls out slightly when you're lowering it down nose first, and then once you get it into position on the nose on the front here, you have to bend those out slightly and ease it in. And then I've got my little file. Well, it must, remember the square edged one? I just pulled that out slightly and just gently pushed it down, and eventually that C locked into place, and then again push that out again, and then eventually that C locked into place. So you haven't got to worry about the rear bumper snapping out. So turning this over, and there it is. Now my initial concerns looking at it first time, one, you've got that bottom lip there, it doesn't match that, it's not like one flush piece, and also the rear tyres and right in the fender wells. But looking at the picture, the black and white picture of the completed model, one, you can just about make that lip out there, so it is right, and two, the rear tyres and right inside the fender wells. So I thought I'd screwed up and I hadn't lined it up properly, but according to that, that's how it looks. So it's not looking too bad, apart from just those little two concerns. Right, welcome back. I've now finished the underneath construction of the Corolla. On the previous update, you know, I'd lowered the interior chassis into the underneath of the outer body shell. All I've got to do now is just these two skid plates. Now going over to the plans, you've got C1 for the rear skid plate and C3 for the front skid plate. I had to mask them both off because on C3 you've got black and silver in the middle, And on C1 you've got that X6 XF57 mixture, which I've been using the 36185 Andre Brown for. And then that's got black on there, so I just masked them both off, painted the middles first, then I painted the black. Took about 4 coats for each of them. Now when it comes to the mounting, on C1 you've got 4 little pinholes mounted into the bits and bobs of the underneath chassis from previous updates, so I had to widen those slightly. Dropped a bit of glue in each one and just mounted that down. And because I widened the holes, it went in perfect. So that's C1 done. Now with C3, it had 3 pins. You got 1 and 2 there and 1 in the middle. Again, I widened the holes. The trouble is the one on the front here in the middle, I tried to lay that down, but I couldn't see underneath, so I think it's laid down in the hole with a pin. So I just put a drop of glue in there. And then the 2 at the back, they were dead easy. I could see them with no problem, so I just put a drop of glue in there and just lowered that down. And those are glued an absolute treat. So the underneath of the Corolla chassis is all finished. And welcome back. I've now turned the Corolla over to do step 14, which is detailing and a few bit of construction. So you've got the B3 and the B2 wing mirrors, painted those in black and silver for the actual mirrors themselves. And you've got B30 and B29 for the window wipers, those are in black. Then you've got some clear parts which had to be mounted on, but first I had to paint the inside of the reflectors, all 4 of them, the 2 little ones and the 2 big ones, those are in silver. Once those were painted, then I've got C8 and C9, which are little orange reflectors, which I painted in the X26 clear orange on the sprue. Took about 4 coats. Then you've got the main headlamp clear parts, which I didn't touch those, I left those in the clear, so that's C10, C11. Then you've got B20, which looks like a towing arm. So there's your wing mirrors. The wing mirrors had like a little square raised tab, and then inside the wing mirrors you got like a square hole. So I just put a drop of glue around that little tab and push those into place. You can probably just make out the silver for the wing mirrors. Right, then you've got the front pieces where I painted the silver on. So I put the C8 and C9 little ones in first, the orange. Just put a bit of glue and glaze inside those holes and whack those into place. Then you've got the C10 and the C11 headlamps. Again, I left those in the clear, just ran some glue and glaze around, whacked those in. Then you've got the towing arm, which is the B20, just painted that in the X7 red. A bit of detailing, you've got the oh bloody hell, the door handles I bloody lost myself in. Just painted those in the black. Bit of white around the edges just to tidy those up. And on the other side. And then you've got the little aerial mounts. The 2 outer ones are in the black. The one in the middle is in the X26 brown. And that's that detailing done. Now, moving on to step 15. Which is the rear section bits and bobs. So turning the Corolla around. Firstly, you've got the C6 and C7 rear lamps. It was pretty much all the way around, mostly in the clear X27. That little one there is just left in the clear, didn't paint that at all. And then the one there in the middle, which is the X26 orange. Painted those on the clear sprue. Took about 3 coats, 4 coats to get that right. And just went around with the glue and glaze around the edges on both rear lamps and just glued those in. Little bit of detailing, you got the boot retaining pins, those are in silver. And then you've got the rear handle to lift up the rear part, the rear boot. That's just painted in the black. I just put a bit of masking tape around the top, just painted that black and removed the masking tape. And last but not least, you got the rear wing, which is A2. Spray painted that in the grey primer, let that dry. Then I painted it in the white primer, let that dry, and then just went with me TS26 white, give that a couple of coats, and let that dry. Now gluing that in, you got like a little raised tab there on that side, a little raised tab there on that side, and inside the actual wing itself are some little holes. And that just clipped into place, and then I just ran the glue on the inside to secure that. And the only thing I've got to do now is just put the aerials in, but I'm not going to do that until I put decals on. So the outer body shell is now all ready for decals.